Now, I think that we can pretty much all agree on the fact that Disney and Lucasfilm have been struggling for a number of years, ever since, we saw everything that happened with Boba Fett and the Kenobi series, as well as Mandalorian Season 3, and now we have a lot of mixed reviews, with Ahsoka Episodes 1 and 2, which, by the way, guys, Episode 3 tomorrow is only going to be around 34 to 36 minutes long, just to give you guys a heads up. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, we know that there's a lot of things happening right now on all Disney areas, alright? We know that everything Marvel, everything Star Wars, and just Disney in general is in pretty bad shape. This is all rooted back to the cost containment plan, to fan feedback, poor fan reception, and it's really wreaking havoc, within Disney itself. And this is all Bob Iger's doing, this is all the board of directors doing, and if you really want to get down to the root of it all, BlackRock and Vanguard aren't really helping either. Let's just be clear about that. So what's intriguing about everything moving onwards is exactly what Bob Iger recently finalized that has a lot to do with Star Wars movies and the concern about the Star Wars brand moving onwards. Let's discuss. Now, we know that Iger is someone that really prematurely approved many Star Wars titles to be, greenlit or to go into pre-production well before they even knew that these movies would, work, either on Disney Plus or in theaters. So, let's get down to the specifics here. So with Disney and Lucasfilm still struggling with course-correcting Star Wars, especially after the mixed reviews of Star Wars Ahsoka Part 1 and Part 2, one major development has to do with a plan that was finalized by Bob Iger just recently. Now, this concerns many of the upcoming Star Wars movies, since the failure of Indy 5 at the box office, where Phoebe Waller-Bridge contributed a lot to that, by the way, Iger has been canceling the multiple Star Wars movies left and right that were intended to both release in theaters and on Disney Plus. A lot of these announcements were going to be made at this year's D23. One major project involves the finalized cancellation of a High Republic trilogy that was initially greenlit by Kathleen Kennedy that was going to be released on Disney Plus as the first series of Star Wars movies to arrive on the platform by mid-2025 that would be low-budget and small-scale films. This was recently canceled by Iger after realizing the cost containment plan went active, and also after noticing the failure of High Republic books selling very well. Another film that was axed, either for better or worse, was the first Old Republic movie that was going to be released in theaters during the same year as James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi film. The Old Republic film was going to serve as a singular film, open to becoming a trilogy if it performed well in theaters and at the box office, and was going to focus on characters like Darth Revan, Malgus, Bane, and Zana. Now, let me just stop here quick, guys, before I get to the next big piece of this development, is that I think it really may have been a blessing in disguise that they canceled the Old Republic movie, because let's face it, it's Disney. They would have most likely Disneyfied the Old Republic movie. As much as it may sound very exciting on paper, like the Old Republic centering on Revan and all those other Sith Lords like Zana and Bane, focusing on the creation of the Rule of Two, all these great things that they could have explored, at the end of the day, most likely, in the realistic world, they would have most likely just Disneyfied that movie. There's no doubt about that. Now look, at the end of the day as well, the fact that they wanted to create this strategy by mixing a release of Star Wars movies, both on Disney Plus and in theaters, this way they could just create a maximum release of Star Wars films instead of Star Wars TV shows. This was Iger's vision. This was his basic, dream, so to speak, to boost his legacy within the Star Wars realm and the Star Wars fandom, which all, by the way, fell apart rapidly pretty much, 70% of Star Wars projects are now canceled, not just because of the cost containment plan and budgeting restrictions, but it also has a lot to do with everything that's been going on with the WGA strike and SAG delaying a lot of things. That's only making the job harder. And a lot of fans are beginning to forget. Mando Season 4, by the way, now is not releasing until at least mid-2025, and I think a lot of fans are just going to forget and give up, because that's a long ways off. Let's be clear about that as well. Now, here's the other thing on top of all of this that I think makes things even worse, is that additionally, another film that was axed by IGER and the board involved a plan for a film that would center on an origin of the world of Exegol and the Sith royal families, set in between the Old Republic and the High Republic era. Also a singular film that was intended to release in theaters. This was going to be created by J.D. Dillard. This was finalized and cancelled just recently as well, behind the scenes, by Bob Iger. All what remains right now are 3 movies. The Rey movie, Dawn of the Jedi, and Filoni's movie. And Dawn of the Jedi is even facing a cancellation, as James Mangold is in the hot seat after what happened with Indy 5, given that he wrote that film and directed it. 90% of the board members felt Iger made the right call by canceling all these films for different factors that went into the decision. Now look, guys, I've made this openly clear many times. I literally loved Star Wars for a very long time, and after realizing the failure of Obi-Wan and Boba Fett and Mando Season 3, and now, I gotta be honest with you guys, Ahsoka Episode 1 and 2 just really did not impress me. I really wasn't caught, and I wasn't all that sold on Episodes 1 and 2. And learning that Episode 3 is gonna only be around 30-some minutes long, excluding credits, mind you, I think that this is gonna be nothing more than a filler episode by Steph. And that really just goes to show you, at that point in time, you only got a handful of episodes left after that. So, I think at the end of the day, too, Bob Iger, his call, may very well have given some breathing room for Star Wars. I think what they were doing was going to only damage things further by releasing so many movies. Basically, what Iger wanted to do was that he wanted to Marvelize Star Wars, and in a almost literal sense, he wanted to Marvelize it, but he also wanted to follow the frequency of releases of Marvel. We all know that there's many Marvel movies that release a year, or used to be. You're not going to see many of them for a good while due to the WGA strike and SAG. It's going to create a ripple effect of delays. 2024 leading into 25, you may realize this gap in all movies, mind you, not just Disney, but just all movies. So, it's interesting to see the fact that Iger went through with all of this, and all what remains right now is still the ridiculous Rey movie. Nobody asked for this, and the fact that that's going to be the first movie, by the way, that releases by 2026, which, by the way, that's going to be delayed by, 2027, I feel. Anyway, guys, I would like to hear what your thoughts are below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. No, I'm not the one from night to moon.